And so by the early 1990s, we were dealing with almost complete state capture by military rule. Nigeria was also short out of many global cooperation frameworks, so we were isolated as a state, and the economy was closed. It was in that context that a group of concerned business professionals and industry leaders got together and started to discuss a need to engage the government of the day on the future of the economy.
As technology, economic growth, multiculturalism, globalization, and IT began to advance across the world, and nations began to consolidate economic and political power, the NESG realized that Nigeria could not afford to be left behind. And so, on the 30th of September 1997, Nigeria's Vision 2010 Committee, chaired by the former head of the nation's interim government, Chief Ernest Shonekan, presented its report to the then head of state, General Sani Abacha.
The NESG pioneered the concept of visioning. And back in 95, within our first 3 years, I think we had Vision 2010.
During this phase, the Nigerian Economic Summit, NES, made notable impact by establishing global benchmarking discipline as the premise for national economic scorecard measurements, reviews, and assessments. This was part of the efforts to set the agenda for the modern Nigerian economy. This era, the early opening up phase of the economy, heralded commercialization, liberalization, and privatization policy reforms.
See, NESG's, should I say the philosophy or the concept we adopted universally also influenced subsequent regulations and legislation, but it did so in a manner that was almost difficult to discern. I give an example. There are several laws that came out: Pension Reform Act, Central Bank Autonomy. Some of the principles that governed these statutes were laid down, at least in discussions of past economic summits.
Deregulation, opening up our country, and bringing a more understanding between the public and private sector became the hallmark. And most of the institutions you see today, EFCC, ICPC, Nigerian regulatory due process offices, these things, most of them were instituted because of our recommendation. If you go back,
you have to go and queue at NITEL if you want to make international calls. Now you can do from the convenience of your home, anywhere. That's opening up. So that private-public partnership enabled it because we forced governments to privatize NITEL, and a new telephony system emerged.
The Nigerian Economic Summit drove reform legislations in key reforming sectors like power sector, with the National Electric Power Authority, NEPA, renamed Power Holding Company of Nigeria, PHCN, and broken up into 18 companies that involve the private sector in the generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity. 2. The creation of the Ministry of Communication Technology. 3. The strategic concession, commercialization, and privatization of Nigeria's seaports, amongst other sector reforms.
People are sitting in Nigeria Investment Promotion Council today, which was conceived as a one-stop shop for investors in Nigeria. That was not only the NESG proposal and recommendation. The NESG actually set up the committee that drafted the legislation, and I was a member of that committee, what you have as today's Nigeria Investment Promotion Act. It's verbatim, a draft from NESG.
We have done Vision 2010.
Yes.
Then, because of the transition of the president, there was a discontinuation. It was in 2010, when Mr. Jonathan was now in office, that focus on rebutting the vision and creating a longer-term vision for 2020 got greater attraction.
As the Vision 2020 ended in 2020, we supported the government in creating a new Vision 2050 agenda and a medium-term development plan 2021 to 2025. So NESG has played an important role in catalyzing the ideas that inform our agenda, and by holding a scorecard up to show where we are.
As it marks its 30th year anniversary, the Nigerian Economic Summit will continue to push the boundaries of impact-driven, evidence-based policy reforms and implementation across all the sectors, establishing clear reform priorities for the Nigerian economy. And with the help of dedicated, patriotic, private and public sector professionals, its vision of becoming Africa's leading private sector think tank, committed to the development of a modern, globally competitive and inclusive Nigerian economy, is beginning to align with the desires of every Nigerian for a better, fulfilling, productive and prosperous life now and in the future.
My non-intellectual approximation of your book was that I described that there are two types of relationship you can have with your country. Either you see your country as your father, your parent, that is responsible for you, or you see your country as your child that you are responsible for. If you're lucky to have grown up in a matured country, then it acts as your parent. It has the capacity to provide for you, and so you are entitled. But if you are in a country that is in formation, you must adopt the attitude of I am the parent. This country does not have the capacity to provide for me, and we will sacrifice for it.
The essence of governance, if you go back to those who even brought democracy, is that we have transferred our sovereign to a leader in order for the leader to protect us. People think that morality, ethical standing, and so on are no longer relevant in governance. Morality is at the key of values of governance. Courage and empathy. Happiness is defined by the basic necessities of life, and that's why you can't be asking people to be citizens when they don't have those basics. They can't bear the responsibilities of citizenship.
In social sciences, we do not take the philosophy of a leader as what they say. Our commitment is in what they do.
So Nigeria has a leadership philosophical framework that gets the man who is in leadership thinking that Nigeria is rich. What it does to us is that it develops leaders who have the mindset of rich kids. He is ready to drive a Porsche, without earning the money. Somebody else earns the money, but he spends it.
Where people feel that their voices don't actually matter in the society, what they would do is to do everything possible within their means to distort whatever plan you have, whatever growth strategy that you are implementing. And without that, really, there cannot be a sustainable economic growth and development.
Almost every country now providing infrastructure, what they do is they collaborate in a public-private partnership with the private sector, and then dedicate most of their money to education, because it's very important that things like education are available to majority of the young people, that every child that wants to go to school will have access to quality education.
Would
success look like? Do we know what a happy Nigerian will look like? Is there a mean point where we can say if we are here, we're good? And of course, that is programmatic. So, you've mentioned perhaps Singapore, you've mentioned Israel, referred to the book, but the ideas were driven out of a combination of anger, hatred, isolation, and the concept perhaps that they were just surrounded by enemies. And from then, a nation states were rallied, people were educated, conscientized towards a particular purpose. Now, is that possible in a country of many nations? Is there a parallel? Because if you look at the British Isles, what is the parallel? Because there are many small nations there in the United Kingdom. And some of them are even saying we want to go anyway. Some of them are saying, like we say here, give us our oil. And some have left. They say we're staying in Europe, but keep the border open so we can see our brothers. I think the idea of a nation of laws is the one that easily appeals to me, and it would perhaps be, as I argued, our biggest selling point if it could just be said of us, that country is a country of laws, the law-abiding people. The honest, and with that comes all of the values about law and order. And it would perhaps make us richer than we could even think of if we were just looking at prosperity. But it would also unite the family, knowing that in a sense, once you break the law, you can't go to any KBC or any bar to go and beg. You will deal with the consequences. There will be no discussions about where you come from, what your ethnicity is. You have just broken the law, and the law will take its course. I think that is an idea around which we can take our first tentative steps into ideology for national development before we start going into the development of the people and all that.
The Hamilton Project was conceptualized on what needs to change for Nigeria to move at the pace that we all want. And that reflection led to one conclusion, that economic policy was not enough, that minds have to change.
It is a distinct privilege to address you at this crucial NESG dialogue session organized under the Nigeria Hamilton Project. This theme has been powerfully articulated by Professor Osita Ugwu in his compelling book, which serves as the intellectual anchor for this event. In my opinion, the philosophy of leadership is about the vision, consistency, and a relentless focus on the well-being of the people.
I just want to begin by asking you, what motivated you to write this particular book?
One of my pains come from when I read papers I wrote 30 years ago, and they are still relevant. And I'm asking myself, so we haven't actually moved the needle. So I started examining what leaders bring into office. What kind of philosophy, what orientation, what ideology, what values, what knowledge do they come with? And I discovered this was extremely important. You know, development involves actually actions from the citizens, but it is leaders that will stimulate that action from the things they do and the framework they provide. So that's what led to the program.
The intellectual community should be developed and supported by the state. The attitude of a leader must be one that embraces knowledge and is thirsty to actually know more and is prepared to support people that will be generating that knowledge unconditionally.
If it could just be said of us, that country is a country of laws, the law-abiding people. So once you break the law, you can't go to any cabinet or any Oba to go and beg. You will deal with the consequences. There will be no discussions about what your ethnicity is. You have just broken the law, and the law will take its course. I think that is an idea around which we can take our first tentative steps into ideology for national development before we start going into the development of the people.
Answer one question for me, Prof. Which one comes first? Achieving transformation or reducing inequality?
The transformation you pursue must address inequality.
Hi everyone, we are inviting you to the Nigerian Hamilton Project, which is a powerful opportunity to experience dialogues and bonding platforms that are focused on expert-led bodies of work inspired by expert-led panels and discussions and audience interactions across the geopolitical zones of Nigeria to drive real change. The Hamilton projects are designed based on the Alexander Hamilton National Dialogue Framework, which seeks to mobilize citizens and experts to discuss developmental issues that are transformative in nature. The very structure of the dialogues being that we will not be having it in our traditional locations at the NESG, Lagos or Abuja. We'll be out in the regions of Nigeria, in your cities, Port Harcourt, Enugu, Kaduna, and other cities across the country, discussing with you where you are in the regions and in the subnational locations, and debating development matters that make a difference. In this first installment, led by Professor Osita Ogbo, around his body of work, Development as an Attitude, we will be exploring leadership philosophy and how it inspires values, principles, practices, and consensus, both for citizens and leaders, both in the public, private sector, and civil society, and how is a necessary ingredient in pursuing Nigeria's own economic, social transformation and national development objectives. These sessions hope to inspire policy recommendations, academic integration, participant engagement in your local, subnational area, and media engagements, all targeted at generating cutting-edge new ideas and consensus, expanding bodies of knowledge needed to mobilize citizens and policymakers to pursue ambitious, courageous, and daring developmental mandates that shifts us radically from being an underdeveloped, developing country into developed and advanced country status in the shortest possible time. These daring, bold ideas that will come from these bonding platforms will challenge local, state, regional, and national leaders to dare the impossible as we build together a peaceful, productive, prosperous, digitally, technology-enabled industrial Nigeria and Africa, and the country and society of our dreams. So join us at one of the locations close to you as we discuss in this series, Development as an Attitude.
Every day, Nigerians are pushing forward, making it work one step at a time. We may live different lives, in different places, but we share the same hope. That progress isn't just promise, it's felt. Reforms are more than policies. They shape how we learn, how we earn, and how we live. NES 31, the Reform Imperative, building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. This October, let us come together to shape the future, because the tomorrow we want starts with the actions we take today. Join us from October 6th to 8th, 2025 to register. Visit nesgroup.org/31. One reform, one decision, one drop in the water can affect lives in many ways. A change in spending priorities brings support closer to the people, so fields can flourish and food reach more homes. Stronger policies build investor confidence, which unlocks capital, grows business, and creates jobs. From roads to classrooms, homes to markets, reforms touches lives in big and small ways. Nest 31, Reform Imperative, building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. Join us from October 6 to 8. Register at nesgroup.org/31.
Nigeria.
One reform, one decision, one drop in the water can affect lives. Every day, Nigerians are pushing forward. We may live different lives, in different places, but we share the same hope. That progress isn't just promise, it's felt. Reforms shape how we learn, how we earn, and how we live. NES 31, the Reform Imperative, building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. This October, let us come together to shape the future, because the tomorrow we want starts with the actions we take today. Join us from October 6th to 8th, 2025 to register. Visit nesgroup.org/31. Lock in your spot now, as seats are limited and going fast. Years ago, Mrs. Izebuwa Kwale retired from active service at the Ahmadu Bello Teaching Hospital, Zaria, and today she is a pensioner. Her story is different from the many ones we hear about who have given many years of meritorious service to their various organizations but have been unable to access their pensions. This was because of the implementation of the Pension Reform Act by the government, which had given Mrs. Kwale and many others like her a future to look forward to in retirement.
I've worked in ABU for almost 30 years. I was the laboratory head. I was actually afraid because they would tell you, it takes time, and you will not, you know what it is not to earn salary, but it didn't actually take time. My pension managers were IBTC, so getting to 6 months, they will tell you to start processing. The processing took probably maybe, let's say 2 months, or maybe about 2-3 months. They paid me everything that I was due.
20 years ago, right, specifically before 2004, right, there was no contributory pension scheme. There was none in Nigeria. Did we participate, when you look at those who put it together to put, Pension Reform Act 2004 in place? The answer is yes. So as we speak today now, the pension industry in Nigeria, go and check. Even though it has a long way to go, there is still a lot of room for improvement. We are talking about subscribers of about 12 million, but most of the salary earners in Nigeria, they are in the pension industry, right? And a lot of headroom for growth, but the important thing is that that industry represents the largest domestic institutional investors that we've got in Nigeria.
To understand the true origins of the Pension Reform Act, we need to go as far back as 1965 to an idea which came from one man, the late Chief Ernest Shonekan, who decided that private sector participation in policy reforms was the gateway to true economic rebirth and restoration. For Chief Ernest Shonekan, inspired by his participation as a private sector representative in the 1965 international conference that focused on frameworks and modalities for a thriving private sector, the first seeds of a similar summit for Nigeria's economy were sown. With the contributions from 2 other fellow erudite leaders of thought, who together would later become the founding members, they formed a think tank group in the 1990s which made recommendations to the then military government of General Ibrahim Babangida on policy direction for the nation. And thus, the Nigerian Economic Summit was born, founded in 1993 and held on the 18th and 20th of February that year. It was later incorporated in 1996.
NESG was a child of circumstance. Circumstance in the sense that we had a military regime. The style of management is a unitary,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nabila Osman. I'm the MC for today. I do want to apologize just very quickly. We're slated to start today's conversation at 4:30, and if you look at your watches, you'll see that we're a few minutes behind time. But we should be starting in about 10 minutes, but I wanted to acknowledge and just let you know, actually we'll be starting in about 5 minutes from now. So I just wanted to welcome you all, and in a few minutes we'll start off the conversation. Thank you for your patience.
In that context, that a group of concerned business professionals and industry leaders got together and started to discuss a need to engage the government of the day on the future of the economy.
As technology, economic growth, multiculturalism, globalization, and IT began to advance across the world, and nations began to consolidate economic and political power, the NESG realized that Nigeria could not afford to be left behind. And so, on the 30th of September 1997, Nigeria's Vision 2010 Committee, chaired by the former head of the nation's interim government, Chief Ernest Shonekan, presented its report to the then head of state, General Sani Abacha.
The NESG pioneered the concept of visioning. And back in 95, within our first 3 years, I think we had Vision 2010.
During this phase, the Nigerian Economic Summit, NES, made notable impact by establishing global benchmarking discipline as the premise for national economic scorecard measurements, reviews, and assessments. This was part of the efforts to set the agenda for the modern Nigerian economy. This era, the early opening up phase of the economy, heralded commercialization, liberalization, and privatization policy reforms.
See, NESG's, should I say the philosophy or the concepts we adopted universally also influenced subsequent regulations and legislation. But it did so in a manner that was almost difficult to discern. I give an example. There are several laws that came out: Pension Reform Act, Central Bank Autonomy. Some of the principles that governed these statutes were laid down, at least in discussions of past economic summits.
Deregulation, opening up our country, and bringing a more understanding between the public and private sector became the hallmark. And most of the institutions you see today, EFCC, ICPC, Nigerian Regulatory Due Process Offices, these things, most of them were instituted because of our recommendation. If you go back,
you have to go and queue at night if you want to make international calls. Now you can do from the convenience of your home, anywhere. That's opening up. So that private-public partnership enabled it because we forced governments to privatize NITEL, and a new telephony system emerged.
The Nigerian Economic Summit drove reform legislations in key reforming sectors like power sector, with the National Electric Power Authority (NEPA) renamed Power Holding Company of Nigeria (PHCN) and broken up into 18 companies that involve the private sector in the generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity. 2. The creation of the Ministry of Communication Technology. 3. The strategic concession, commercialization, and privatization of Nigeria's seaports, amongst other sector reforms.
People are sitting in Nigerian Investment Promotion Council today, which was conceived as a one-stop shop for investors in Nigeria. That was not only the NESG proposal and recommendation. The NESG actually set up the committee that drafted the legislation, and I was a member of that committee. What you have as today's Nigerian Investment Promotion Act is verbatim a draft from NESG.
We have done Vision 2010. Then, because of the transition of the president.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I could have your attention, please. My name is Nabila Usman. I'm your MC for the day. And before I start off, I'd like to ask us all to rise to our feet for the national anthem.
Nigerians all and proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace or battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hang on to our children, a banner without stain.
Thank you very much. You may please take your seats. Once again, good evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Nigerian Hamilton Project, a national dialogue series on development as attitude on behalf of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. This particular event is supported by the Gates Foundation. and it does promise to be an engaging conversation. Today's event is the third installment in a dialogue series that started in the coal city of Enugu and was held in the Center of Excellence, that's Lagos, and then it's come here to the Center of Learning, Kaduna. It's our expectation that by the end of the day, hopefully there'll be tangible discussions that would come out of it. Now, just very quickly, I would like to get into welcoming the CEO of the NESG to the stage in a moment, but I do want to say, for those of us who have our phones out, it's important that you put your phones on silent so that it doesn't ring out to interrupt. And please check your media play, because you would have sorted out your ringtone, but if you open up a video, whether mistakenly or not, the sound will come out. So please reduce that all the way down to the bottom. It's also important that you keep the aisles clear to not disrupt the movement of the media team. So please, if you stand up, let's try to make room very quickly. From the entrance where you came through, you'd have seen that there's an area for you to take phone calls if you need to, or have a quick conversation. And if you do need to use the restroom, once you step out, there'll be ushers right at the door on your way out. They will direct you to where you can use the convenience. All right, having said that, at this point, I'd like to quickly invite to the stage to start us off with today's event. Please join me in welcoming the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Dr. Tayo Aduloju. Please put your hands together as he makes his way.
So good evening, Your Excellency, who's represented by the Permanent Secretary for the Federal Ministry of Finance. I think he'll be joining us in a minute. To a very distinguished set of statesmen, leaders from across business, government, civil society, a very distinguished panel whom we will introduce in a minute. Leaders that have shaped the trajectory and destiny of our past, present, and I dare say our future. Our key resource person for this dialogue. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Because we will have time to introduce our key guests, I will, at the beginning, just not try to overlay these remarks with too much of procedures. Maybe the first thing to say is, why this dialogue? This dialogue is born out of a simple logic that you cannot shape development without going to engage. In fact, you cannot transform anything you have not engaged. An engagement cannot happen in Abuja and Lagos alone, and we say we've engaged Nigeria. So, what we call the Hamilton Dialogue, somebody said, why did we borrow an Oyibo name? Was the first challenge. Was maybe to just reflect on an approach. The Hamilton model is an idea driven by constitutional democracy that says the ideas that form and shape democratic governance and its development come from the people. And so you have to go to the people and dialogue to get a sense of what ideas are useful for their development, and that should drive ultimately what leaders gather to discuss. So the Hamilton Dialogues will happen as dialogic engagements across many states. They are driven by expert material. In this round, the material is a book written by the very erudite, distinguished Professor of Economic Development, Professor Osita Obu. And each dialogue is then interrogated in each region by experts that come from that region, or at least that understand the development dynamics, history, present, and aspirations of the people, and we will pull those ideas together and form some white papers, some policy briefs, and maybe some new research areas. These outputs will go back to think tanks like Arewa House, the Northern Elders Forum, the Northern Governors Forum. Some of these ideas will go back to political parties, especially their institutes, and some of them will just be upfront recommendation to those in power. So in each location, we are solving for the same material in this round. Development as an attitude. We've been to Enugu, we've been to Lagos. Now we are in the beautiful, peaceful city of Kaduna. And it's a pleasure to be here. So give yourselves a round of applause if you made it here. The second question I've been asked is, why did you pick Arewa House? And it's interesting that I'm explaining to Nigerians why Arewa House, because it should need no explanation if our history was still working properly. This is historically the home of a pioneer leader of our dear republic, Sir Ahmadu Bello. This was his residence. It was from here that the ideas that shaped Nigeria's foundation were formed. And so many years later, I think in the 70s, this became a cultural heritage center. And we felt that if a think tank like NESG was coming to the north, the place to go and house the partnership for the ideas that we will build together over the next few years for the Northwest, for the Northeast, for the North Central, for Northern Nigeria, should be housed with an able partner. We want to thank Arewa House for giving us this hall for free. So by the way, it wasn't like they said, NESG, you haven't come and pay. No, they received us here, understanding the weight of the assignment and the dialogue, and we want to thank the director, members of the management for doing so. But I would like to get out of your way quickly, because ladies and gentlemen, when you have a room that is full of distinguished leaders, you know, the president of the Kaduna Chamber of Commerce, maybe one of the most erudite business leaders of our time, Malam Falalu Bello, a former minister of finance, of planning, you know, distinguished intellectual in his own right, business leader, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, you know, an erudite businessman that has made Kaduna his home, Dr. Shagun Falokwe and their lovely wife. One of the most powerful, you know, someone said the era of super permanent secretaries are gone. I said, no, I met one in my lifetime. Hadia Habiba Lawal, just a force of nature, and all her time in government was transformative with the work we did. And Professor Abdul, thank you so much for joining us. I've done the introductions by force, but it's just to say this room is full of so many people with so much wisdom that my goal is to get out of your way quickly so that we can hear those we came to hear. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and wish you great deliberations.
Thank you to Dr. Aderoju for that, for his opening remarks. Now, very quickly, we're getting into the next course for the day. We're here simply, well, in many ways because of this book, Development as Attitude, How National Progress is Shaped by Leadership Philosophy and Citizens Orientation. Over the next few minutes, we'll get the chance to hear directly from the author of the book, and that conversation will be spearheaded by a board member of the NESG. Please join me in welcoming up to the stage Mr. Nana Ude. He will be moderating the fireside, or he'll be in conversation on this fireside chat with Professor Osita Ogbu. Please put your hands together as we welcome the author of the book to the stage.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Once again, I want to join our CEO to specially thank the Arewa House for hosting this event. Like he said, over the past years, this has been a citadel for the promotion of knowledge, research, historical documentation, learning, and then through the preservation of the ideals and values of Sir Ahmadu Bello, it has also elevated the discourse on leadership in Nigeria. I also want to thank Gates Foundation for supporting the NESG in delivering this Nigerian Hamilton project. Like Dr. Tayo said, is designed to advance rigorous discourse on the big development issues that are confronting our country. Thank you so much, everyone, for accepting this invitation. And for me, it has always been a profound honor and privilege to moderate this chat with Professor Osita Ogbu, first in Abuja, then Enugu, Lagos, and here now in Kaduna. And it's not just because Professor Osita Ogbu is one of Nigeria's foremost thought leaders and thinkers, but for me, he has been a mentor, he has been a role model, he has been an inspiration, a father figure, and a teacher. I will, as I have done in the past, through this fireside chat, orchestrate a deep dive into this book to enable the author unearth the workings of his mind on some of the critical themes that he has called forth to our attention as a country. And just like earlier events, we will read some excerpts from the book, and then I'll ask him a question to unpack that particular extract and share with us the multidimensional perspectives, both from a conceptual and a contextual framework. I hope that at some point during this discussion, we will take questions from the audience, but if that doesn't happen, I know for a fact that when we move into the panel discussion, my big sister, Aisha, will definitely give us an opportunity to do that. But then I would like to plead that as much as possible, when we get to the audience participation, you try to ask your questions from the book, drawn from the book. So if you don't have a copy yet, I think they still have quite a few out there. You can rush out and grab a copy. Prof will sign copies of the book at the end of the panel discussion while we network and interact with each other. So thank you for coming. Thank you so much, Prof, for delivering this gift of a book to us as a country. And like I always begin whenever we start, we typically expect a professor to write books, commentaries, but then what really motivated you to write this particular book?
Well, thank you very much, Nana, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Each time I'm asked this question, I have to think about my answer. One of the reasons, professors are supposed to write books, but when a professor is not even well paid, I think his pens and paper will begin to disappear from the shelf. But on a more serious note, when I look at the work I did 30 years ago, publications, writings, I often ask myself, so nothing has changed. The things I said 30 years ago are still relevant. Sometimes you're going through files and you see an old paper. Exchange rate realignment, unemployment, poverty, the things I've been writing all my life. It occurred to me upon review that a few things were missing. And based on my research, I discovered that what was missing was that people get into office unprepared, without any framework, without any philosophy, without any ideology, and so they stumble and ramble until 4-8 years goes by. And as I looked at other countries, I discovered that countries that made progress had leaders that had a certain commitment to certain philosophy, they came to office with a certain vision and framework. While they are in office, these frameworks might be amended, adjusted, but at least they came with something. They were not accidental in governance. So that is one of the reasons why I decided to explore how leaders across the globe, including even in Nigeria, did what they did and why others didn't do what they were supposed to do. So that's what led to the book.
Very early in the book, you positioned attitude at the very center of leadership and its role in delivering happiness to the people. So I will invite you to turn to page 69 of the book and go towards the last lines of the first paragraph, beginning with please note.
Page
69.
Uh-huh.
The first paragraph, go towards the end of the first, you say please note, and then you end with they bring to governance. Page 69. Yeah, there, where you have your thumb. Go down.
Yeah.
Yeah, please note. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I should read that?
Yes, please.
Please note that while the calculus of happiness may differ, happiness knows no tribe, no ethnicity, no nationality, and no religion. It is the product of one's interactions with the socio-economic, political, and legal ecosystem in which one finds oneself. This ecosystem depends on the state, its leadership, and the attitude they bring to governance.
Yeah, thank you. Earlier on, in the previous page, you quoted James Madison.
Yes.
And on the link between happiness and the knowledge of the means. So, can you just share with us why you think it's so important to establish that nexus between happiness and the knowledge of the means?
Thank you. It's interesting that things great thinkers said even in 1778, we are still referring to them. James Madison said that the essence of governance is the happiness of the people. You don't go into governance if that is not your focus. To create happiness for the people. Simple. But then he added another clause. He said, even if you know that that is a fact, do you have the knowledge of how best to create that happiness? Meaning, if you don't have the competence, do you have the humility to assemble those who have so they can help you? First, you have to have the fidelity to know that government exists to make people happy. Then two, you need to know what you don't know so that you are able to generate that happiness. So I think it's important in our climb, because even the title excellency is a bit misplaced. And so sometimes you find, if you go into offices, even when I was in office, directors will be answering yes sir, even when I haven't finished the sentence. And it was quite problematic for some of us who came from outside the system to join the system. So this statement is loaded because it is pointing to a merit-driven process. It is pointing to a system that is efficient. It is pointing to efficiency in governance and efficiency in the use of resources. So you may know what you think you want to do, but you have the capacity to deliver what you want to do.
That actually speaks to competence as an attitude in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so you shared a personal story on page 55. And I would like you to just read that portion.
Page
55. The second paragraph.
Second, which starts with what?
I have a few stories.
I have a few stories of my own to tell. As they together illustrate our working incentive structure, the reason for competence and ability, a strong penchant for ethnic proclivity, and how performance, innovation, and citizen welfare are very far from the minds of many policymakers in our land. In 2006, I was a cabinet minister responsible for national planning. One of the parastatals under national planning is the former research institution, foremost research institution in Nigeria, the Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic Research, NISA, based in Ibadan. I met a barely literate chairman of the governing council of NISA, and I advised the president to effect a change in curing the anger of senior policymakers from his area. I advertised the position of the DG of NISA and incurred the wrath, a threatening letter of a major political player from the city where NISA is located. And a couple of years later, I became the chairman of a reform-minded governing council that was dissolved barely 2 years after inauguration, even though we had given NISA its first strategic plan. Multiply these experiences, these paralyzing attitudes, several times over, and you begin to understand why social and economic change has been difficult, and why many with good intentions will soon succumb and become part of the ills of the system.
What will it take for us as a nation to keep this at the fore of our development?
What would it take? First of all, we need to understand, I did not elaborate on these examples. NISA is a research institution. And when the board came to pay me a courtesy call, the person that was leading the board of NISA was an illiterate farmer. And there were professors under him in that board. And when they left, I was restless. Of course, I'm not deeply involved in the politics of the country. Obasanjo brought us as technocrats. And so, that very evening, I called the president and I said, there's a problem. I've just received the board of our foremost research institute and the chairman, not member, chairman of the council. How can he direct what will happen at NISA? And he said I should come. So I went to his house. We discussed. Of course, when I told him, he laughed and said it's politics. I said, I don't understand this politics. But he then invited me to send him a memo. So I sent him a memo and picked a professor that I have heard of, who was a member of that council, who incidentally comes from the same region as the chairman. So I wouldn't make too much of a political mistake. And said the president should replace this chairman with this professor who is already a member of that council. And I thought the matter was over until I met the senior people from where that chairman came from, who incidentally they were serving in the same cabinet as myself. And it was almost a battle that I had taken their position and given it to someone from another place. irrespective of the fact that it was from the same region. But you know, chairmanship, if you understand how politics works, the chairmanships are given to each state. And without looking as to whom we appoint, we simply send people to chair certain institutions. So the example, and the example of NISA, the other example again was again NISA. We were doing reform in government, and I thought one way of advancing that reform was to advertise the position of DG so that we can select the best to go and run the institution. Once I put that ad in the paper, I received a very strong letter, very intimidating letter from a senior politician from where NISA is cited, who now said, who told me that that position can be advertised? Who told me that it is open to anybody to apply? I mean, and on and on. So it began to dawn on me that even people who are supposed to know are not willing to advance the cause of the nation. They are simply interested in whether this thing has come to them, belongs to them, it is my brother or my relative. So that's why I brought it out, that the attitude of leaders is extremely important. They don't want to understand the motivation behind the actions. They simply think that all actions must be tailored to their primordial instincts. Page 24. Okay. As long as we are not remorseful or ashamed of actions of our public figures and do not take steps to bring them to justice, as long as our democratic and justice institutions are weak, we will be on the transforming path without transforming. When we suffer shame, do we treat and reconstruct our institutions to respond and conquer? It will appear that we no longer suffer shame. Every performance, no matter how abysmal, does not arouse a sense of anger. The kind of anger that allows a nation to say never again. The kind of anger that allows you to create institutions, new incentives, and new values required to attain greater heights. The kind of anger that allows a nation to meet the expectations of her citizens. That we have Boko Haram, kidnapping, and all other forms of militancy, and indeed corruption and a high level of poverty, should trigger anger and shame, and consequently a national response to this negative characterization that mar the image of the country and stunt our development. When a nation has no shame, it will assume that transformation will occur simply by decreeing it and by happenstance, or by the chronological age of the nation. Lacking the incentives, the resolution, the nobility of spirit, the attitude, the sense of purpose, and the patriotism to rise to the challenge and seize the opportunity to keep pace with the progress of the world and to conquer. It is not just a leadership issue, it is a followership issue. Well, in 1945, the Americans, President Roosevelt, I think, bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, brought the two cities down. The Emperor of Japan, Emperor Hirohito, you know, Japan was also a conquering imperial nation with very high sense of pride. But this very technology, this bomb of infinite magnitude humbled Japan. It brought shame to Japan. And so, in a 4-minute address, when the radio crackled and they said the emperor was going to speak, Japanese people were like, the emperor was also treated as divine. He was not just a monarch, he was God. So he rarely speaks. So in a 4-minute address, he asked the Japanese army to surrender to the Allied forces, wherever they are. And Japanese people did not understand it. They thought he was going to ask them to fight to a finish, because this was a nation with huge pride. But this technology has brought shame to Japan. But in that 4-minute address, he extolled both the nobility, the ethics, the virtues of the Japanese people, and told them that yes, we have been humbled, but we are going to rise. And we are going to rise depending on the hard work of the citizens. He said a lot of things in 4 minutes, just 4 minutes. But what this did was that it transformed the psyche of the Japanese people, transformed even the political system, transformed their ethics and purpose. And as you can see, Japan rebuilt and indeed conquered. So, when nations, if you bring that back home, we went to Olympics and got 0 medal. 0. Absolutely no medal. No one resigned. No one was sacked. No shame. No humiliation. No recreation of incentives so that next time it won't happen. I was asked to give a public lecture to the military several years ago in Owerri, when they have the Army Week. And one of the things I said was, when will we come to a point where someone will say, this will not happen under my watch? Because of shame. If I occupy this position, I will not allow this to happen. If it happens, then there will be consequences. So shame is linked to accountability. Karl Marx said that shame is not, revolutions are not caused by shame. That shame is the revolution itself. That when a nation suffers shame, it recoils like a tiger, ready to spring. So when you suffer shame, it should push you in, create new energy with which you deal with matters at hand. It seems we are losing it. I don't know any governor who watches the poverty index of their state and say, on the basis of this, if I will bring it down from 70 to 50 or 50 to 30, if I don't do it, don't re-elect me or something will happen. So a nation without shame is also a nation without consequences. Yeah. Yes. Okay. You want me to read that? In April 2012, I published a widely circulated article in several major Nigerian newspapers titled, "The Reality of the North-South Divide, Why Jonathan Should Appoint a National Coordinator for the North." The premise of this article is that we are one nation and plan to remain so in whatever form it takes. And there are very important reasons for re-examining the current form. I was making the point that available statistics show glaring and significant differences between the South and the North, and that this gap is not healthy for the nation. My point was that this was not a northern problem, but a national problem that required a national solution. No, if you read the history of developed nations, let me give you a quick example of Malaysia. Under Mahathir Mohamad, a very brilliant national plan was crafted by their National Planning Institute. And the man said, I love this, but I'm going to put it aside and create a sense of nation first. That we are diverse. You know, Malaysia has Malays, Indians, Chinese, and others. But what he saw, he wasn't happy with. He said, let me create a sense of integration, a sense of belonging, a sense that we are different but one. What he calls Bangsa Malaysia. United in one purpose. So the essence of this piece was to say, what happens in Boronu cannot be Boronu matter alone. What happens in Aba cannot be Aba matter alone. That if we are one nation, we must be addressing the regional disparities, the inequalities, the difficulties in various sections as a nation. Not to say, I'm not absolving the governors in their responsibilities that they owe the citizens. But there are national responses to issues that I wasn't seeing. And so I was actually appealing to the courage of the president. Because, you know, presidents are surrounded by people who give advice. And it's only a courageous president that steps outside that team of advisors to do things that are bold, that unites the country. So it was a call for unity, that the progress of one is the progress of all. And one part is not making progress, we all must be concerned about it and see how we address it. You know, I was invited to again give a lecture somewhere, and they wanted me to speak about poverty and insecurity. And I said, no, it's not poverty and insecurity, it's inequality and insecurity. I changed the topic. I said when we were all poor, insecurity was not high. Yeah, but when citizens in quote, because really, the people you're calling citizens, we have to be very careful. When someone has no stake in a nation, no food, no housing, no job, I really wonder whether we can label the person a citizen. You know, he was one of the American presidents when he was agitating for housing rights for Americans, that he said, necessitous men are not free. You know, poverty has a way of taxing cognition and leading to poor choices. So when we sit in our cozy rooms and say, why are they selling their vote for 5,000 naira? It's because you've never been that poor. If you understand poverty and what it does to thinking and choices, then you may not be able to make that point. So inequality worries me. Because when we were growing up, the children of Oga and the children of the driver of Oga were attending the same school. The same. The driver will carry the children, the children of Oga, children of driver. We didn't have all this multiplicity of private schools all over the place. So it gave them a level starting point. That's how the children of drivers also became professors. But what have we done now? We have abandoned the public institutions that is the basis for living for those who are not as privileged. Because all of us have migrated to private schools where we send them. You know, we have even abandoned the universities because we can also send our children abroad. So the inequality of now is even less than the inequality we are going to produce in the future. Because my children, the children of the elite, have access to good quality education, which will enable them to command better jobs. And the income gap will keep widening. So my point is, why is this not obvious? That part of the crisis we have has arisen from people feeling they are not citizens, feeling excluded, feeling, and I give the example, and I said, if I am a father and I'm not able to enjoy the prosperity of now, but I am conscious and aware that the state has made it possible for my children that they will enjoy the prosperity of the future, I will work hard. But supposing I know that I'm not enjoying it, my children will not even enjoy it. So on what basis do I exercise the responsibilities of citizenship? So inequality requires that we go back to public institutions to strengthen them. Part of the reason why people drop out of school is that they know that they are not learning. That the schools are not producing enough for them to really even attend the schools. And so you need to check the quality of those who are teaching. You need to check how we are investing in these schools. Because, you know, poverty is cured when you increase the assets of the poor, when you increase their capacity, when you increase their productivity. You know, what we are doing in Nigeria is poverty alleviation. We are not creating prosperity. We are not interested in creating prosperity. Otherwise, we will not allow the manufacturing sectors all over, the textiles, to die. We can't. Poverty alleviation, what do they call it in the other regime? Money, something they are distributing all over, 5,000. That's alleviation. That's not prosperity. Yes. Yes. Well, the National Economic Council in particular, which is supposed to be coordinated from the now Federal Minister of Planning and Budget, is a very important institution that brings both the state and the federal government together. My experience is that that council has essentially become where you go and ask. In those days when we were in government, it is where the excess crude account issues will come up. We need to share it now. It's already raining in our state. It shouldn't save for a rainy day. It's already pouring, and so on. It's not. It's supposed to be, in my view, where you can incentivize and catalyze production in states. If the federal government has a pot of money and it says, Region A, we know you have these raw materials. Can we receive a proposal that will begin to use this to industrialize your state? so that we can partner with you and the private sector to kickstart. Federal government will provide certain incentive, whether in terms of resources or whether in terms of donor coordination, in any form. I expect the National Economic Council to be where we discuss these relationships that are based on incentives, that are based in a production, that are based on reducing poverty. That is one reform that I think can take place. The other reform has invariably even happened, but to what extent? You know that we do very beautiful plans, and one of those plans was even done when the minister that is seated here was minister. But you will notice that each time a president goes to National Assembly to present a budget, very little reference is made to the plan, because the elite, we have not agreed on where we are taking the nation. And so the executive is saying one thing, the National Assembly is saying one thing. The president sends a budget to National Assembly, and what returns to the president does not resemble what he has sent. So there is a certain disjointedness even among the political and economic elite as to where the nation is going. Page what? 86. Yes. Okay. Well, I was trying to actually give my own definition of a development. For me, development is the resolution of our many contradictions. We have had both the military dictatorship and civilian governments, and a seemingly buoyant but acquiescing civil society. We have many rules and laws, but they are observed in breach. We have presence of schools, but absence of learning. We have huge banking industry profits, but very little credit to the real sector. We have huge and rising debt, but very dilapidated and neglected public, social, and economic infrastructure. We have increasing growth rate without declining poverty. We consume what is manufactured elsewhere, but our manufacturing sector is insignificant. We have many jobbers, but rising joblessness and underemployment. Large numbers of micro producers and traders, but very few micro entrepreneurs. Many people are working, but only very few are making a living. We are good consumers of technology, but poor producers of technology. A growing quantitative youth burgeoning with a corresponding quality capability decline. High female population with poor gender equity. No, it is when you resolve these contradictions that you are said to be developed. So it's not the development that resolves it. It is the resolution that gives you development. So you must craft policies knowing that these are serious contradictions and they don't exist in developed countries. Yes. 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 You mean finally? Finally, growth is important, but the drivers and sources of this growth are equally important and need further interrogation. Inclusive growth and the permanent structural economic shift require diversification, especially in manufacturing. But diversification is not a natural phenomenon. You must cause it to occur,
It requires the active intervention of a government, a purposeful government with visionary, value-driven leadership, working in close partnership with entrepreneurs, willing to create a society that cares, especially for the less privileged. The sort of partnership Obama acknowledged in his 2012 State of the Union address. You know, manufacturing faces a lot of disadvantages, including first mover disadvantages because of lack of prior leaders or experiences in that sector, especially with infrastructural problems. So what smart, intelligent governments should do, whether national or subnational, is to begin to de-risk the investments of the private sector by creating incentive and certain level of partnership that says we are in it together. We will give you land as part of our equity. We can even contribute some money. But more importantly, as I was telling the governor, even in Abia State, that institutions are useful in supporting existing clusters, even when they already exist. Because people get to a certain level, they can't advance because knowledge is required to shift to the next level. So states, governments have a duty. You know, I was in Rwanda and we attended this annual conference in a very beautiful hotel, in a conference center. No private sector will have built that center. So what the government does is, it goes out, gets the money, builds it, transfers to the private sector, collects the money, does another, we do airport, in other words, the states must be smart to engineer industrialization in a different format. You know, I've often said, we have a very short window. You know, we keep saying we are labor abundant, but what is the quality of the labor? We say labor abundant country, you know, but China, with their labor abundance, but you know, their labor abundance, if you go to the foundations that they laid, that was why they were able to transform the way they transformed. Because if you hear the story of how the telephone, what is it called? The one of Steve Jobs, iPhone. How iPhone was made in China, you will be surprised. Because Obama was asking Steve Jobs, how come you took iPhone to China to manufacture? He said, show me the engineers. When they ran into trouble in the production of the phone in America, the executives flew into China, saw an already made factory, were able to recruit 8,000 engineers in 2 weeks. First-class engineers, well-trained. Over 20,000 skilled workers, non-engineers, willing to work 16-hour shifts. So he turned to Obama and said, where will I get 8,000 engineers in 2 weeks, even in America? And so I ask ourselves, in the entire country, Nigeria, can anybody point to one first-class engineering school in Nigeria? We all have faculties of engineering, including the University of Nigeria where I teach, but which one is world-class that can produce people that can do the kinds of things that are required for this transformation that we're talking about? Yeah. Yeah. We are being left behind, though. You know, we have to be truthful to ourselves. I visited the United States between May and July, and I can confirm that I've entered that driverless car. You know, the car without a driver. It has driven me more than 30 minutes. And people were asking me, I was with my wife, and they were saying, you guys were not afraid. I say, we have come to this era. A car without a driver exists. You sit in your house. You actually summon the car. It comes and parks. Waits. It has 5 minutes to wait for you. As you are approaching the car, it senses the phone that called it. It will bring out the door handle, and you open and you enter. And it will ask you, start the journey. Because before it came, it's already been told where you're going. You just push a button, start the journey, and it takes you there. Stops at the stoplight, it drives green light, nothing. I mean, so, Nana, I have become part of the fourth industrial revolution. This is not theory. I am a participant in it. But to your point, we are going to have what I call forced transition. Because the thing comes upon you whether you like it or not. So the reason why driverless cars are going to take over soon is that unlike humans, there are no errors. They don't sleep on the steering, they don't drink, there's nobody, it sees 360 degrees. So the same with robots in manufacturing. That's why I say we have a small window, because robots are still very expensive. So they cannot be deployed as massively as possible. So this is the time we can very quickly re-engineer and do a lot, especially with the Africa Free Trade Arrangement. Because we can even trade amongst ourselves first before we think of exporting to others. So we are being left behind, but purposeful, intelligent states, the developmental state, can still find niches, can still find. Africa, Nigeria is very rich in so many minerals, in so many things we can process, if we are purposeful. Not only can we bring the technology, we can bring the people that the technology is embedded in to assist with these processes. But we must get away from trivialities and thinking that just putting blocks together is what development is all about. Yeah. Well, this was several years ago. I was much younger at a conference in Nairobi, Kenya. International conference with Europeans, Americans, Africans. After listening to too many of these talks, I said what Africa needs is a brigade of African intellectual freedom fighters. The chairman stopped me and said he has never heard freedom fighting being associated with intellectuals. I said it's because you don't understand the depth of the problems we are facing. I was referring to a cadre of intellectuals because my experience is diverse. From Washington to Nairobi to being a policymaker in Nigeria to classroom. I have seen very knowledgeable Africans who do not have the courage of their conviction, who are willing to run away from their own conclusions, who are scared that their conclusions will contradict what Washington is thinking. Those are not the ones I'm referring to. I'm referring, when you're a freedom fighter, you're courageous, you have conviction, you have a sense of purpose, there is a change you're pursuing. So this set of intellectuals who are knowledgeable, and they don't have to have PhDs, they might be artists, but they believe in what they know and are willing to use what they know to liberate the continent.
Because this idea that someone else can come here and think us out of our problem is really very unreasonable. We have the knowledge, we have the people that can think us out of the problem. We just need to give them a chance. We need to assemble them, encourage them, for them to generate. You know, in these parts of the world, universities are not centers of solutions. And I wonder, when there is serious headache in America, if it is technological, they go to MIT. If it is social, they might go to Brookings Institution or Heritage Institution, depending on your ideological leaning. But, or University of California, Berkeley, or Yale or Harvard. In Israel, the Hebrew University is a center of solution. We think university is set up to produce students, not to solve societal problems. That's one of our crises. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ude and Professor Ogbu. An enlightening conversation, if I may say so myself. There's a part in the professor's book where he speaks about the singularity of identity. And I think, Professor, it's very well and good to simply call you a true Nigerian, right? And it's not about the words that have captured your time of national service. It's really just the conviction that's been shown on the stage as you spoke about these issues, very salient issues. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome up to the stage our host, really. His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Governor Uba Sani, is here represented by the Commissioner of Finance, Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, the Honorable Commissioner, who's also represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance. Please put your hands together for welcome remarks of the Governor, Mr. Lawal Al-Hassan Habib.
Permit me, please, to stand on the existing protocol. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, organizers of this remarkable initiative, esteemed colleagues, invited guests and participants, it is my singular honor and privilege to deliver these brief remarks on behalf of His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, who, due to pressing state matters, could not personally be here this evening. He has, however, asked me to convey his warm regards and best wishes to the organizers, participants, and distinguished guests gathered here. Permit me to commend the vision behind this project, which seeks to emphasize that true and sustainable development begins with a shift in mindset. Development is not only about policies, budgets, and infrastructure. It is also about cultivating discipline, integrity, innovation, and responsibility in our daily lives. When development becomes an attitude, progress becomes inevitable. For us in Kaduna State, This message resonates strongly with our ongoing reforms in governance, fiscal responsibility, and inclusive growth. We recognize that in financial management and resource allocation, it is the values and attitudes of both leaders and citizens that ultimately shape the trajectory of sustainable development. The Nigerian Hamilton project stands out as a bold reminder that the destiny of our nation lies in how we think, act, and collectively pursue excellence. We are confident that the deliberations and engagements here today will inspire new ideas and strengthen our shared commitment to building a Nigeria defined by accountability, innovation, and resilience. Once again, I thank the organizers for the kind invitation extended to Kaduna State and for providing this platform to reaffirm our shared values in nation building. I wish all participants fruitful discussions and a successful program. Thank you. God bless Nigeria Hamilton Project. God bless our dear state, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Another round of applause, please. A big thank you to the Permanent Secretary. In a few minutes, there will be a panel discussion underway, and please don't mind the activity up on stage. They're preparing it, and I will get the opportunity to call up our distinguished panelists. Permit me to take a moment to recognize a few people in the room. Dr. Aduloja had already done so earlier on, so if I end up repeating names, please bear with me. Again, a big thank you to the governor who's here, ably represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Kaduna State Ministry of Finance. I also want to thank Engineer Dr. Abubakar Gambo Umar, who's the Managing Director, CEO of the Sir Ahmadu Bello Memorial Foundation. Mr. Ishaq Bello, who's here, is Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Estate Surveyors and Valuers. Also, Dr. Muhammad Sagayi, who is a member of the Economic Advisory Council of the NESG. Mr. Falalu Bello, who's, I really can't sum it up in any singular designation, but thank you, sir, for being here. And Dr. and Mrs. Falokbe, MD CEO of Belmont Nigeria Limited, Mr. Asher Usani of the FCDO PACE project, and Hajja Maryam Muazu, who's Special Assistant to the Honorable Commissioner of Human Services and Social Development. Thank you once more for joining us at today's event. We do appreciate your presence. So in just a moment, we're going to have our panelists up on stage. I'll start off calling the panelists before I hand over to the moderator. They're just going to adjust the stage for one quick moment, right? And while they're doing that, permit me the opportunity to quote a part of the book, which Professor Ogbu, he references and he repeats a number of times, actually. He references a speech by the US President Barack Obama, and there's a specific part he repeats a number of times. He says, "For they have forgotten what this country has already done, what free men and women can achieve when imagination is joined to common purpose and necessity to courage." A very enrapturing quote, really, and worth the repetition. And I'm going to leave you with that as I call up to the stage our distinguished panelists for today's conversation. Please join me in welcoming Professor Mariam Abdu, who's Professor of Finance at the Faculty of Management Sciences at the Kaduna State University. Professor. And while she makes her way, please, ESV Ishaya Idi, who is President of the Kaduna State Chamber of Commerce. As he makes his way, please join me in welcoming Dr. Habiba Lawal, who's former Special Advisor to the President on Policy. And our final panelist, last but certainly not the least, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, Chairman, CEO of S. Usman and Associates. Please welcome him to the stage. At this point, I will be ceding the microphone and the floor to the moderator of this panel, Dr. Aisha Waziri Umar, who's a partner at Pro-Diverse Legal. Please put your hands together as she makes her way. Sir? No.
Thank you very much. Let me first start by acknowledging Professor Ogbu and congratulating you for this excellent book, and also appreciating the NESG for inviting me to participate. I think we'll say probably 26 years of democracy. And I'm an economist. You've asked me a political question, so I will give you an answer that a typical economist will give you, which is on the one hand and on the other hand. On the one hand, we've achieved a lot of progress, even in terms of the politics of democracy. The form is there. We have had 26 years of continuous rule, changing over from one government to another peacefully, even though occasionally with disputes that go up to the courts. We have the instruments of democracy, the 3 tiers of government, the 3 arms of government, electioneering, political parties, and so on. Now that's the form. What about the substance? Unfortunately, that is where the challenge is. There is form, but there is no substance. Now, what is the substance? There is no integrity. There is no accountability, as the author has said. And there is not active citizens' participation. The citizen has actually been made almost like a no factor as far as our politics is concerned. In a book that I published last year called Public Policy and Agent Interest, we characterize that as the fact that the social contract between the citizen and the state has broken down. There is really no social contract in Nigeria as you have it in other climes, where the government says, we will take care of your security, of your education, of your health, and a few other things in return for the taxes that you are paying and your behavior, civil behavior. Unfortunately, we've lost that. So that maybe is on the positive side. I mean, one can cite even 3 examples of saying, at least in terms of form, we have made some progress. 1 or 2 of those examples, I was there. Now, the first one is probably, you can say, third term is gone, is dead and buried. I don't think any president or any governor will try to go for third term. We've buried that. But the tension that arose, I was in the Yar'Adua government, the tension that arose in the handing over between Yar'Adua and President Jonathan, many people did not know how tense, how close to the precipice the country was at that time. You know, those of us that were in the cabinet, especially the Executive Council meeting, one very, very critical and dangerous, you know, the split among even the members of the Federal Executive Council. Now, we had a political system that rose to the occasion and averted that crisis. Of course, many of us played some roles as well, and I covered some of that in my book. I think the third one is, again, people sometimes don't appreciate. A sitting president picked up his phone before the final collation of results and called the other contestant and said, congratulations. Even in some of the mature democracies, that doesn't happen. So again, these are some of the positive signs. But unfortunately for me, the negative side is that the whole politics is about we, that is the politicians. Nobody is thinking of the citizen, as Professor Ogbu said. Nobody is caring about the fundamentals of what the state owes to the citizen. And the first one is peace. Peace, security. I mean, look at this country today. How can development take place in the kind of atmosphere that we have? When we economists sit down and do all our calculations and so, we take certain things for granted, what is called ceteris paribus, and that there is peace, there is law and order. You know, there is no law and order in this country today. And one of the key examples for me, which is a big tragedy, is even the way how we've resolved this Quam 1, Quam 2, and Quam 3. It just shows you lack of law and order. Because what has happened is that means that actually many other people will do the same thing and get away with it. So no accountability, no concern for the citizen, and he's not given enough reckoning and active participation in the system.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. I'd like to go to the second panelist on your left, Professor Mariam Abdu. Sorry, Dr. Habib Alawan, apologies. So based on your reading of the book, what would you say are the essential qualities and the concrete actions that define truly effective democratic leadership for development?
Thank you. I would also like to join my other colleagues to appreciate the author, Professor Ogbu, and to say I was one of those civil servants while you were the Minister for National Planning that eventually rose to become a permanent secretary. And I will not say more, maybe when we meet again, maybe a few episodes during the budget defense. That being said, I would also like to thank NSD for inviting me to be part of this panel. From the reading of the book, what comes across to me, what I understand is that the essential qualities of a developmental leader are many. Most especially, it depends on his leadership philosophy. What values, attitudes, integrity, competence, capacity, how much of those does he bring to the table in leading the country to the shared expectation?
Or she.
He or she, yeah. In fact, it should be a she. I'm saying this because we need to unpack many things. We need a leader that is fearless, he's optimistic, ready to transform, to be able to manage diversity, to be able to manage inclusivity and ensure it happens. Those are a few. We also want to see that maybe one of the essential qualities of a leader is his ability to build consensus within the citizens of his country. We're assuming that Nigerian citizens agree that they are citizens based on all we have had already now. Because there is a need for us maybe to further define who should be a citizen. Because if what a citizen expects he does not get, does he still become a citizen? Does he believe he's a citizen? That's another discussion for another time. So those are a few of the attributes or qualities that we expect a leader to have. So if he has those qualities, if she or she has those qualities, a he for she, if he or she has those qualities, what concrete actions do we expect to get from that? Because if you have the knowledge, you have the knowledge of governance, you have the economics, you also have, you know the fabric of their nation. Then the next thing is, how do you lay the work that needs to be done? First, we expect that that person comes with a strategic thinking, a visionary thinking of where he expects to take the nation to. And he's able to mobilize and cultivate the citizens to achieve that purpose and to move towards that goal. We expect, coming from that, to now formulate policies that are long-term, that those long-term policies will address the national interest, the end question where that country hopes to go. And it goes in steps. So he's looking at building a legacy, not a short term, and he's looking at inclusivity, diversity, mobilizing citizens, and in order to achieve. He's also making sure that resources are utilized effectively, judiciously, and also ensuring that every community or every level, every strata is taken care of in terms of development. But of course, we have already clarified that development does not entail building roads or just making boreholes. So those are a few, we might say, that actions that are expected of a leader. He must, of course, be law-abiding. He must follow the rule of law. Not only expect that from citizens, he must also be accountable. He must be transparent, must be honest. It is only then that the citizens will follow, respect, and then agree with him to take him where. He should have the courage to take tough decisions.
Okay.
Even if those tough decisions are not popular, as long as they are good for the country, then that leader, she should be able to take those decisions.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think Nigerian Economic Summit, I think we need a whole summit. We need a summit on inclusion. I think there's so much to be said about this. I noticed that when the special guests were announced, there was only one female. And the MC, she went through a long list. There was only one woman acknowledged. I think we need to change that mindset. Anyway, that's a debate for another day. Let's go back to the topic at hand. It's not funny. Okay, so I'd like to direct my question to Ishaya Idi, President of the Kaduna Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. So my question has to do with the gap between leadership promises and actual governance outcomes. My question is, why is there a gap between the promises and the outcomes? And what mechanisms, what specific mechanisms are failing to ensure accountability beyond elections? So after elections, how can we hold leaders, how can we get the outcomes based off of their promises? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I have been given 2 minutes within which to say or summarize all that I want to say. I have gone through the book and even deciding to write about the attitudes of people toward leadership in this country is a commendable thing. I feel we should commend the writer. And after going through it, I found out that the basic things that affect our leadership in this country are, first of all, the leadership recruitment process. The process of recruiting our leadership. The leadership here, I consider the political leadership and the leadership within the civil service. How do we recruit them? I remember in those days, if you are a senior civil servant from level 08, they take us to the High Court to go and swear out of secrecy. And we were really working hard to see that we protect government policies. Then people that come as political leaders, when they come, the process which we use in electing our officers or selecting who should lead us, I think we need to rejig and find out proper processes. If you look at the processes in the First Republic, during the parliamentary system, and the process we are adopting now, and again, the extraneous ways, I have found the current leadership stretching and giving powers to the legislative arm of government, I don't think is healthy for our growth. So we need to examine from the party front up to the national front. Now, we were talking about formulating an attitude by the leaders. The leadership comes from us. If the leadership comes from us, the followers, every day they come to you, you see somebody who was elected driving keke napep as his major job. Just 2 weeks after he has been sworn in, he's been given over 150 million naira to go and buy a vehicle that he will come and enter your midst and be driving with a tinted glass without you even understanding who is passing, that you are supposed to be his subject. So these are the processes that I think we need to look into. And once they get into offices, what do they do to make us feel they are representing us well? They take from our commonwealth money and then come to share. They call it poverty alleviation, Nego? Poverty alleviation. And this poverty alleviation, I don't call it poverty alleviation. They don't alleviate poverty, but I say they are deferring your poverty. You are feeling hungry today, somebody gives you something, so give you for 1 or 2, 5 years, he's saying, I'm giving you food today, and then when you eat tomorrow, you continue with your hunger. I don't think, so you see, the whole thing is about the leadership and the development processes that we have adapted to ourselves. If we are able to change all the trajectory on how these things are done, then we will be able to find good leadership, people that will lead us with a deep feeling of sense of commitment to development. Now we don't have development plans. Now we are told that the 2004 budget the lifespan has been extended to December 2025. I don't know the obtuse kind of growth we are getting into, and we are calling ourselves growth, and all this is being propelled by the leadership people who have put in place. And we, the followers, are watching, sometimes helplessly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you've just touched on the issue of selection. I think what Prof was emphasizing in his book is that leadership entails being deliberate. It can't just be going by chance and, like he said, accidental. So based off of that, when we're going to select, what are the kind of characteristics? This is a question for Professor Mariam Abdu. You're a professor of finance, Faculty of Management Sciences, Kaduna State University. So I want to ask, how do we go about selecting and ensuring that whoever we're selecting is going to be deliberate? How do we tell beforehand? And also, riding on that, how central is the issue of gender in governance and leadership? How can we realistically expect development without tackling this issue of being deliberate and being inclusive? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aisha. Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. I thank the Economic Summit Group for inviting me. And thank you, Professor, for this wonderful book. I've read it. It's full of humor. And it's just the reality of where we are in Nigeria. Now, Aisha, I'll start with the second part of your question before I come to the first. That's the issue of gender. Since the Beijing Declaration, I don't know how serious this country has taken the issue of gender in its governance and policies. There should be women directors, there should be women in government. You know, we should have a voice for women, but we're not really clearly seeing it, unfortunately. I think about 4 years back, I was part of the committee that screened the local government chairman for Kaduna State when Governor Nasser El-Rufai wanted to have the elections for local government chairman. I was part of the committee, and the Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs called me and said if I would want to be part of the panel, and I said yes, I would surely want to be part of the panel. Now in that panel, we had the women commissioners were there, and you know, the team was there. But when the delegates came, I can tell you there was no lady that was contesting for the position of local government chairman in Kaduna State. So we need to be very serious when we're looking at gender issues. If you look at the National Assembly, I think we have only 4 females in the National Assembly, out of a chunk of about maybe I think 100 more senators. So it doesn't all go well for this dispensation. The same thing if you go to the House of Representatives, you see that there isn't much representation of women in the House of Representatives. So really, I think we need to stand up and look at the issue of women, gender representation in governance. If you look at the president of Tanzania, whom I admire very, very much, she's doing so well, President Suliha. She's doing so well with the economy. She has transformed education, infrastructure, manufacturing industry, you know. So it's encouraging. I think women should really have a chance to be in governance. We have a deputy governor in Kaduna State who is a very hard-working lady, Dr. Sabwa Balarabi. And before this particular election, she staged a group called Sabwa Queens, which was part of it, which I was part of it. And her idea was to see women in governance. It hasn't gone really deeply, but I want to plead to the nation to actually look at the issue of women because we're a key player when it comes to governance. Now, the first question was on, can you remind me?
It's essentially, I think you've answered the question. It's to do with how we can ensure that because leadership has to be a deliberate decision, you have to have an aim, you have to have a plan. In the same way, when it comes to selection of leaders, it also has to be deliberate.
Yes, it's very important. When we're selecting our leaders, we have to select leaders with integrity, with morality, with foresight. We cannot afford to have leaders in this dispensation with having no structures on ground, no foresight. They should think ahead, just like what Professor Osita Ogo is saying in his book. We should have leaders that have the intelligence to to address, to look at issues forward, to address issues. Integrity. Currently we have a deficit in integrity issues, something we should address. So we should be very careful in choosing our leaders. Foresight, integrity is very key, very, very key to national development. It erodes corruption.
Okay, thank you. So Professor Ugu talked about, the title of his book is Development as Attitude. So, and of course, I think this is the essence of this dialogue is to sort of, as it were, lock ourselves in a room and tell ourselves the truth. So he says, that development is not merely a function of policies and institutions, but is fundamentally influenced by the attitudes and consciousness of both leaders and citizens. It is about being deliberate and not accidental. I keep going on about that because for me, the way that we're approaching, after elections, what happens afterwards, it's just based on whims and caprices of whoever. Whoever is closest has the ear of the governor or the president. Who's the last to see him that night probably changes his mind. So the thought process is so shallow. Perhaps they're overwhelmed. That could be the reason, I don't know. But I know that maybe they intend to. But at the end, when they get there, they find they're overwhelmed, and unfortunately they start to delegate even their cooks sometimes and their drivers sometimes. You can get across to them through those different avenues. So this is a very crooked system that we're running. We have to tell ourselves the raw truth. And I think this is very important, this dialogue. It's a beginning of a conversation that Nigerians have to have these tough conversations. We can't live a lie. We're living a lie. And I think we keep repeating the same old thing, but we have to change the way we even discuss these things. We have to be very, very down to earth and honest about it. So based off of let's say my appeal for us to be very candid, I would now go back to Dr. Shamsuddin Usman. So in your candid opinion, again, using the backdrop of Professor's book, so what do you think are the most critical, let's say, 2 critical actionable changes that are needed in our political system, our leadership culture, and civic engagement that will improve the trajectory of democracy and development in Nigeria within the next decade? So I'll just say 2 actionable changes needed in our political system, leadership culture, civic engagement. Thank you. Just 2 minutes, sir, so we can quickly round up. Thank you.
I think for me, one very critical one, obviously, is electoral reform. I think we need people that are honest, like President Aradua was, to say that, look, this process that got me elected is faulty, and I am willing and able to change it, and he started the process by appointing the Waste Commission. So, that degree of honesty, and we can actually do change the electoral system, particularly with the use of technology. So what is needed is a degree of honesty and integrity behind it. So that's one for me. The second is the political system itself needs reform. The problem you have, unfortunately, is that those who have the power to reform the system are the greatest beneficiaries of the dysfunction that is in the system currently. So they have no incentive. They have no incentive to change it. I mean, I can give you several examples. You've limited me to two minutes. But my first assignment as Minister of Finance was I got some economists with myself. We worked out a simple macroeconomic model of Nigeria's economy. And I went through this committee of the National Assembly, that committee, presenting it to them, trying to show them, look, if you just add 100 naira to this particular budget, this is the implication on employment, on poverty, on this and that. You know, of course, you know, they would just sit there listening to me, At the end of the day, this man is talking Dogon Turanchi. Because that's not what was interesting them. Their interest is, at the end of the day, how much is going to go to my constituency project? How much are you putting in my constituency? That's all. So you can reform the political system bit and bit. But honestly, I think for me, the system is such that they made it very difficult to come in, for any honest person. The way that it's almost like an investment. In fact, it is for them an investment at the end of which they want to reap a big reward that is not deserved. So what do you do to that? I think that is the $1 million question, and maybe I should leave it to experienced politicians like Ramasani who have been out there on the field, and the philosophy of the PRP, and I think that's it really, because I served as a director of budget under Rimi. Those were still the days when it was not the government that funded political parties. It was the ordinary citizen who was so committed ideologically, these tailors, shoe shiners, that were contributing money to fund the party. That was how NEPU PRP, So I think one important thing, again, that will address that is reform of the financing of the political parties.
Excellent.
In the United States, there is a law that guides this. You can't spend beyond a certain minimum. When one of the gubernatorial candidates that lost recently told me that he budgeted about 3 billion naira and spent more than that and still failed to make it, because he said of the manipulation that took place last minute. Not because he was not popular, not because he didn't get the votes, but the results were manipulated at the last point.
Yeah, thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay, I'm so sorry to have to rush a little bit. So you talked about financing and the fact that a lot of elected officials feel it's an investment and they need the return on investment. So now, I think yesterday, yesterday I had a discussion with Professor, and he said something that really struck me. He said, poverty and democracy don't go together. So they're incompatible. Now, in a country where we have almost 70% poverty, how can we have a thriving democracy, a functional democracy? So my question, Dr. Habiba, is that, look, in theory, democracy should foster development. But in our own experience, how has it influenced socio-economic development? And if it has, where is the weakest link? Or has it been counterproductive? Thank you. You have 2 minutes. I want us to go around so that we can get questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. In my view and also in my experience, in addition to reading the book, I don't think democracy has significantly improved socio-economic development in Nigeria. It has improved movement, like Professor Shamsuddin said, you hear the movement, things are moving, but there's no tangibles. So in effect, I don't think we have gotten that. And even where we have what we could call a few tangibles, they are not significant enough to be able for you to lay your hands to say that these are worth all the resources and the energy and the temperature that has been expended. And for me, I think we have more of the weak links. The most of them, which is what we're saying, is it has resulted in increased insecurity. For me, that is one of the fundamental causes of insecurity in our land. The other forms of violence, because people are in abject poverty, their expectation of peace and security and provision of social welfare virtually does not exist, and they have nowhere to raise their voices, and they are seeing resources being wasted and being handled everywhere, but they cannot touch. They don't have access to basic infrastructure, no water, no inroad. So I think for me that is the one of the weakest. So since you want just 2 minutes, we'll stop there.
Oh, thank you so much. I think we're really getting a little deeper now into, in practical terms, what are we going to do about the situation? I think we already know all the problems, and there's like what we need to do now, talk about solutions. So I'd like to, Isiaka Idi, I want to ask please, how can democratic governance improve transparency, equity, unity, and long-term development?
When we say democratic governance, that by itself, connotes a lot of things. Democratic governance, at what level do real democracy start? Is it at the process of recruitment, when the political party are being formed, when the leadership who should lead the political parties are being selected, or when representatives are being elected? So at what process I used to remember talking about democratic humanism, which was a thing that, when you look at it, it was a propaganda that was being done at that time because of the exigencies of the moment. But in Nigeria today, I sit down sometimes, I ponder, I wonder, how do we even start solving the problem of Nigeria? Let me tell you, we were involved from 1999, we were involved in the political process, and at that time we were political leaders in our various communities. When they bring the ballot boxes for election, you collect the ballot box, you are already thinking of somebody that must win the election by whatever means. I remember I told them at a certain point in time, I said, look, gentlemen, if we don't stop this process, one day we'll be looking for people to come and vote. They will refuse to come out and say, go and do it the way you are used to doing it. Recently, by-election was conducted in Kaduna. I read in some polling units that are supposed to have about 500 electorate. They say only about 10 people turn up. 10 people. Will it be true? Why the apathy? These are some of the things we need to look into critically and tell ourselves the truth, how we can go about to see that we elect people of credible character. Another thing is the incentives. Like during the parliamentary, the election, the incentives people get, elected people get, reduce them. Make local government councillors, make local assemblymen, House of Assembly members, make them part-time. And there are real people who are prepared to serve their communities more than the ones that have used their money to buy where they are, that don't have the opportunity. These are until we are able to look critically and go into such a process by whatever means, I don't know. Or it will be difficult for us as long as the highest bidder gets the position of the political party, the highest bidder get the nomination, because there is what they call delegates in political parties when they select who should go and contest, and the delegates are, they clap their hands, I'm entitled not to become a delegate because of the amount it was going to get from the person who is taking office. And like the Shamsuddin has said, all the people that are contesting, they are investing. The first thing they do is how do they recoup whatever they have expended. I can't understand this kind of system we are going into in this country. We all know, all of us, that the system we are going through will make us, will nosedive us, will get to the ground, then to get up one day, I don't know who will raise who up. It's unfortunate.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think you have, Malesiaka, you've touched on the issue of incentive and the prize at the end. So what I think you were touching on is the end result of an election where the winner takes all. And when we say the winner takes all, he really literally takes all. He's the power, he's everything, or she is everything, even though we don't have any governors. But anyway, he or she is everything. They hold the keys to the war chest. They hold security votes, this fuel subsidy, earnings, all these things are there in their hands. So of course, at the end of the day, there's so much incentive, and people will do anything to get there because the prize. So I think one way of maybe perhaps considering is how to reduce the powers and also the finances available at the end. So, but that's going to be a very difficult thing because just like Dr. Shamsundu said, the people who are supposed to change are the ones that are benefiting from the system. So it will be very difficult to convince them to do it. I guess now we have to talk about the citizens. So perhaps if the people in government are not, don't have the incentive to change because they're benefiting, how about the citizens who are suffering? Is there a way, this is for Professor Mariam Abdu, what do you think, right? How do you think citizens can participate in governance and hold leaders accountable? And what is eroding public trust in our democratic processes? And how can we rebuild this trust? Then, of course, I'd like to refer to professors, intellectual freedom fighters. I think you mentioned that. So do you think that this notion of intellectual freedom fighters might be something that we take away from here and say we're going to start to develop intellectual freedom fighters who are going to keep hammering and hammering on this until it gets, the message right, gets to the people who are governing us? So I know this is a very packed question, but I know you're good at unpacking. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Well, you see, when we're talking about citizen engagement, it's fundamental. It's paramount for a functional democratic system to work. Now, when the citizens are not happy or they don't have any confidence in the system of governance in place, definitely we're going to see a deficit. To answer your question, I'll say the citizen engagement is quite low. Now, when I was reading Professor's book, there was an item, there was a part in the chapter of his book that caught my attention and I found very, very interesting. Now, this was a part where he said he brought in about 40 senior staff of the Federal Civil Service to come for a training in Kaduna State to look at work ethics and values. And he pondered the question to them on a scale of 0 to 10, if I might, Prof, how would they rate the allegiance to Nigeria? And most of them said 0. He was dumbfounded, but that is the true position of the situation. Now, if you look at citizen engagement, what are the democratic benefits that we have? What are the governance? What are the benefits that these citizens have achieved? You look at poverty, you look at industrial development, infrastructure deficit, we need industry just like Prof is saying. So the issue of the freedom fighters, we hope to see that coming on board in Nigeria because maybe they're the ones that can salvage our nation, that can voice out our issues those in power. Because everything has been said here. If you look at democracy, you look at money politics, you look at lack of industrial development, and just like he said, we need to leave this syndrome of made in Nigeria and come to made by Nigerians, where we're able to develop our manufacturing sector, where we're able to export, where we're able to develop as a nation, grow as a nation. Just a recent, the Bureau of Statistics rebased its statistics, and in the analysis, they said that the sector that was performing so remarkably well was the services sector. but the manufacturing sector was not doing too well. And I can tell you, I've always voiced this out, and I'll continue to voice it out. We need to get our manufacturing industries up and working, because that is the only way we can generate employment, we can reduce poverty, we can encourage growth, economic development, I can go on and on and on. So citizen engagement really is too low. And we pray and see a dispensation where they will be carried along, where they will feel a sense of belonging, where they will die for Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just want to apologize, Professor Ishaya. I got the name wrong. I'm very sorry. It's Professor Ishaya. Please accept my apologies. Professor? Doctor? Yes, V. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. So, all right, never mind. Okay, sorry. You sounded like a professor, by the way. Brilliant. So, no, you did too. Okay. So, yes, thank you so much. Now, we're really running out of time. We want to have question and answer session. But before then, I want literally 30-second, right, on what you think. Okay, starting, well, all of you, please. Do we have cause for optimism? What do you think we can do, and do you have hope for Nigeria's democracy and developmental future? So, Dr. Shamsuddin, do you have cause for optimism? What do you think the future looks like for Nigeria? 30 seconds.
I have what I call guarded optimism. The situation appears very, very tough, and it is, especially for the majority of the citizens. But I also believe that where we are heading to is unsustainable. So it's either we manufacture the solution and deliberately get it done, or unfortunately, we run into a crisis very soon.
So,
now, the only advantage is that sometimes Nigerians, they do extremely well when there's a crisis. In fact, that's the time people wake up now and find a solution. Don't mind that it may be a firebrand, or fire brigade kind of solution. But I think for me, but maybe I should conclude by the same conclusion that Professor Obu reached in his book, that we economists, we have seen, I think in my book I came to the same understanding, that our traditional models of GDP growth, just don't work. They don't explain the situation. And for example, the conclusion I came to in my book is that it is the politics stupid. Yeah. That we used to say in the NESG, I was there also at the formation, that if only we could address Nigeria's economic problems, everything will be okay. But I came to the conclusion, particularly based on my public sector experience, that unless we solve the political problem, nothing will be all right. So that is why I say optimism but guarded. Because who are those who are best in place to solve the political problem? It's the politicians. But they are the greatest beneficiaries of the current system that is not working for the country.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I really appreciate this. So, Ajay Habiba, so could we also have your own view? Optimist or cautiously optimistic or pessimistic?
I'm not sure I'm optimistic. I think I only have one small optimism, that the youth of Nigeria are becoming active and that there is increased social mobilization. So in that wise, I have small hope, but it's not significant to get us to where we're going. So, but I also want to say that, yes, platforms like this need to be accelerated, fast-tracked, and made to become, maybe eventually, the intellectual what does Prof say? Intellectual, I'm looking for the
freedom fighters.
Freedom fighters. So I think the NESG should lead to increase the national consciousness, harnessing the efforts, giving leadership. Hopefully, in some years to come, maybe the Hamilton project will make some hope, give some hope.
Thank you very much. So my next question is for ESV Ishaya, ED. I would like you to please answer the same question. Are you pessimistic, optimistic? Where do you stand in the prospect for the future?
Well, as private sector leaders, we understand that sustainable economic growth requires more than fiscal policies. It demands a shared mindset, a development-oriented leadership, and an activated citizenry. Nigeria can only rise to the level of the values we embedded in our governance and the attitudes we embody in our daily civic conduct. As already said, attitudes shape policies, and policies shape nations. So, I believe that we used to say, "Agurin Allah anababa su karewa," that with God, it is very possible that Nigeria is going to rise and rise beyond what we expect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we go to prayers now. We have to pray and fast. Okay, so sorry. Thank you very much. Now for oh my God, Mariam Abdu, Professor Mariam Abdu. I'm sorry about the titles. I'm a bit okay. So could you give us your own last concluding remarks? Are you optimistic, pessimistic, in between?
Well, in my closing remark, I will tell you something. Yesterday, we were discussing with my mother and my siblings about the state of the Nigerian economy, and she said something very interesting that made me really ponder. She said, "Who cursed Nigeria?" So that set me thinking, because if you look at independence to date and look at how nations have progressed and we are not progressing, it becomes a very, very serious issue. So the issue of optimism, pessimism, like you said to me, is just prayer. I have always said, and I'll continue to say, education, health, infrastructure development, industry is key. Without that, I don't think we are going anywhere. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's very sobering for everybody's response here. So I'd like to quickly move to a question and answer. Please keep. I think okay, we have somebody. I thought maybe the MC would come and take over the question and answer session. And I also, okay, maybe before she comes, if it's okay, Alhaji Falalu wants to speak. Please, if you come. While you're coming, he can make his. Okay, excellent.
Thank you very much, moderator. Mine is not a question as such, sir. More or less, it's a comment on what my uncle, Dr. Shamsuddin, said, that there was progress in the political process. And he gave the areas he felt there was progress. In my view, sir, there is no progress. In the last 26 years, we have not recorded any political progress in Nigeria. That's a statement of fact. And, sir, I will just pick 2 examples to demonstrate this. The third tier of government in Nigeria are the local governments. There has been no functional local government election in Nigeria at all, across the nation. There is no state government that conducted local government election that there was election. Each and every state government returned almost 100% to the exclusion of all other political parties. I'm from Kaduna State. 23 local governments of Kaduna State, 243 councillors, all were APC. And in any case, the elections were going on, at least in Zaria, when the results were announced on the TV. This has happened, and it's a factual statement. I wish the governor were here. And how can there be progress when we are not having election? There is no election in Nigeria. The second example I will give is the latest by-election of 16 constituencies across the nation. Again, I will give Kaduna State. At least in Sabangari, Zaria, Kiwai, we saw what happened. List of APC and PDP supporters were jotted down and monies were given to them for voting. How can there be democracy without election? So as far as I'm concerned, sir, I respect what you said at that level of Federal Executive Council when there was that term and all this. I agree. But at the real political level, we are not making any progress. There can be no democracy in any system without election. And we don't have election in Nigeria. That is a statement of fact. I am of the PRP, and to say that in Page Kano, there will be election of NNPP, it's not just APC and PDP, it's every state governor. In Kano State, there was no election. Everything was NNPP. I'm just saying. So I'm just responding to what my uncle said. And that is a statement of fact. Now to my question. And I'm happy there are so many economists here. There's one there that I've been arguing continuously. From 1984 to date, they've told us they have forced liberal economic policies on Nigeria. No subsidy, liberalization, devaluation of currency. From 1984 to date, let them come stand up and tell us, have these policies worked? That is why we are poor in this country. Poverty has been weaponized. That's why people are being bought and sold. So are these liberal economic policies working? I see 3 economists here and a number that are here. Why can't we abandon what we are doing wrong and begin to change? You say there is no subsidy. When even the most capitalist of capitalist economists now, Professor Ugo, the US economy subsidizes its agriculture. We don't want to subsidize our own. We only subsidize fertilizer that ends up in pockets of dealers. And we all know this. We believe this can continue. So if you cannot answer this question for us and the government, I can assure you that in the not too distant future in Nigeria, there will be violent revolution. Thank you.
Okay, please, we're going to just take all the questions and then we'll have them answered. But please try and make them brief so we can finish before Maghrib. Thank you. Okay. Please, 2 minutes, literally.
Thank you so very much. When a politician speaks, the vote does get dropped. And luckily, he's also an economist. I want to appreciate the evident classes here, particularly my mentor, Johnson Guzman, and the author, and my assistant for the ESG. And I appreciate the fact that the ESG has made attempts several times to identify matters regarding each and every field, that is regarding mindset. I was starting with ESG, which was the number of something that addressed this issue of our universities, churning out graduates who are not useful, and there are many other challenges. Now, drawing from a number of presentations that I also read the book, not only in part. What we borrow from Malaysia, particularly matters of global action program. Largely in Nigeria, there are fundamental issues which my senior brother here tried to address through the political issues, the matters of corruption. Now, until that issue is properly addressed, all the issues of consolation, and particularly when we hear Dr. Johnson Guzman, Professor Abu, and the rest, what they say is all things being equal. So you know they never get equal. All the options that are being postulated hardly fly the roof. Now, what I want to say, I want to appreciate what you have done in your book, and what you have done and what others are trying to contribute, and to say the whole responsibility is not on the general people. That is what we call the Nasa Gamagarumata. It is on those that God has endowed, like you, that you have written books now, to continue to propagate the books. And then through association, the Church of Man meets Kapegi, one of the also president groups who like to educate, empower, and all that. And there are other organizations like that. We need the protectioners to come up to the day to continue to do that through their platforms and through that. One last issue is that getting the continued engagement regarding the community is to ask that this expert that we have among us will continue to work and come up with what will actually help cure corruption. It is the only issue, because no matter what you say, like he mentioned, elections will continue to be dictated by the fact that corruption has been weaponized. All those who will go to the polls have to be paid. And they are there in their queue waiting. They wait in the lunch. And if you go and meet them in the corner, they say which party, you tell them. You now give them the day. Then they go and do the voting. This is all over the country.
Yes.
And until you are able to elect the right leader,
Yes.
the recruitment process is made good. It cannot happen. So it is a few, as it said in Islam, it's a few persons that will rise up to the day.
Yeah. Yes.
So I look forward to a united a Nigeria's body, not based on region or tribe or religion, but coming together as a nation movement. We have some, but we need those to be actually properly empowered, strengthened to move as a nation movement to safeguard the Nigerian public on the matters of corruption.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Please, can you introduce yourself again? Please introduce yourself again. Who's, sorry?
My name is Ahmed Radu. I remember several times of the Jonathan Committee of the NSG.
Okay.
Former Commissioner Council, former President of Council Chairman, currently National Vice President of the Senate.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for that. So, yes, we have somebody. Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
My name.
Please, 2 minutes, literally, please.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 seconds. Don't worry.
Okay.
My name is Dr. Bello, a National Vice President of NACIMA, National Chamber of Commerce. That's one. How get its funding? I want to know that, and I will now form an opinion about NESG. I used to hold NESG in high esteem.
Okay.
Sorry. Having realized that it's a non-governmental organization, non-partisan. So, I just want to refer to page 40, where you said that where justice is denied, where poverty is involved, where ignorance is involved, and where any one class is made that's what is happening in Nigeria. To me, it's seen by academicians that the best ability rule is better than the most democracy. Honestly, I'm very soon Nigeria will come to a place, with over 18 million out of children, and it will continue. I'm sorry to say, Nigeria is a country that has been consistently inconsistent when it comes to policy. Nothing will work, and we can never make any progress.
So, what is your question, please?
Well, I asked the first question.
Yes.
Answer me.
How is NESG funded?
Yes, I want you to answer.
Okay. Second question.
Second question. I want NESG to fund, if it is possible, if it's not government funded, to turn into where if it is possible. But if you are being funded by government, forget it. There's nothing you can do.
Okay, I can tell you that it's not funded by government. It's a non-governmental, non-partisan, apolitical. So I don't know. It's absolutely no. Can I just say, the Nigerian Economic Summit? Any of the DGs here, the Nigerian Economic Summit is a private and public sector partnership. So anyway, let him answer. DG, please.
So let me answer. So we have never been funded by government. We have always been funded by members, including members of the city. In fact, on a weekly basis, also the president of the city, Nasmi, NECA, we need to discuss our collective view so that we have one point when we advocate for the Nigerian people and the Nigerian economy. We are apolitical. We have never taken a political party side. So PDP was in power, now PDP is in power, the foundation has been the evidence. We use the evidence to determine what the issues are. And those issues then form the basis of converging in Abuja for what is called the Nigerian Economic Summit. So this year, for example, what was the data tell us? That even if the government says it made macro progress, at a nano level in my wallet, as a citizen, I don't do it. At a micro level, the household are seeing the radical inflation and the cost of living crisis. At a business level, we are still dealing with high cost of doing business under difficult constraints. So that has formed the summit theme this year, for example, reform imperatives, right? And so that's the nature of the data informs the basis of the advocacy. Now, to your second question, can we be where we screen political party leaders? You can see where the problem with that will be. Now, can we be where we screen political party leaders? Well, I think sessions like this, their purpose is to give incentive for many more institutions and platforms to form, including a citizen-led platforms for how leaders will be screened. We were the only organization in the last election that convened a session where the leading political candidates, Mr. Peter Obi, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, Mr. Now Mr. President, then Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, presented to an independent group what their agenda was and answered difficult questions. Okay? So now, that's the role we can commit to playing in the future. Being a neutral platform where we force political leaders and their ideas to be available to citizens to listen, ask questions so that they can go and make maybe more informed decisions. That you can have our
Thank you. Okay, please, we have a lady who wants to ask a question. She's there. Yes, please.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, our panelists and prof. I listened intensely for the discussion of the panelists and looking for jobs for the future. And one thing that we made clear was the fact that Nigeria's problem has not changed in any way. Same issues of fairness and citizenship. And now there is a teeming with population, some that are beginning to enter corridors of governance and development. So my question was like, what can young people do differently over I mean, where did they see that we can do better? Because there's a new population that's coming. And my second question is on the issue of gender and inclusion. I listened to the panelists mention about how Nigeria is even the Beijing protocol on action, Beijing declaration, and so many other international instruments we have for work, we have gender policy. We have all of these things in place and nothing has been fulfilled. I know that right now there's now a plan of organizing that is going to give way for more women. But in your opinion, what do you think we can long term? Because even the reserve safety is supposed to be a short term action. I mean, it's supposed to be an affirmative action that will go for a short period of time. So what long term solutions do you recommend that Nigeria put in place that will bring women, more women, especially young women like myself, into some those kind of solutions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Before we ask more questions, if it's okay, can Prof please take the mic and answer some of those questions, and we'll ask another round of questions before we close. Thank you, Prof. Please answer as many questions as you can. Thank you. Some of them were not really questions, but yeah.
It's very interesting that I think NAC, I hope you're taking notes. It means that this dialogue we need to do more, because a lot is coming out here. Yeah, well, that is true. Yeah, your governor was invited, Yeah.
Before the session ends.
Yeah. You have an important we will find a way hold on, to convey this to them. The truth of the matter is that the political market, you know, people, when I use that term, they say, the political market, I say yes. The political market in Nigeria is dysfunctional. And for as long as it remains dysfunctional, it will create huge uncertainties in the economic market. So the economy, because governance is at the root of politics, and politics is what produces that governance. That's why I spoke about citizenship responsibility. Are they citizens? If they are disenfranchised, if you can't choose, remember, the panel raised the issue of recruitment. How do you recruit your leaders? If a councillor, if a chairman of the local government has allegiance only to the government, only, not to the electorate, what do you expect him to do? So it means all he needs to do is favor one man who put him there and hoping that the same man can return him. This is how serious this matter is. And so we need to emphasize that politics needs to be there for the economy to work. On the young people, you know, when we were young, we had the same sense of idealism. And I think our young people are losing sense of idealism. Meaning that which ought to be. Because you are in an environment that is so polluted. You are also becoming so immersed in it. We are saying young people should begin to agitate, be fearless, be courageous. Some of us are in the departure lounge. You know, when I turned 65 many years ago, I said, anybody asking me how is the work is really insulting me. After 65, why should you be asking me how is the work? Am I supposed to be working? Internationally, everywhere, 65 is supposed to be retired. So, we expect, and it's not essentially the fault of the young people. We are also not teaching you right. We are not showing you the examples. We have, in this system, we are honoring the dishonorable. In this system, and you people are watching it. Examples were given. Somebody suddenly who couldn't buy a motorcycle suddenly wins an election, is writing 150 million. So, my senior brother, you know, you raised an important. Many of us have said there is no one single model for economic development. It doesn't exist. You can quote me. Models will take into consideration the culture, the institutions of the people, the belief system. You can't fly in with your laptop and begin to dictate what can happen. It's not done like that. It is not done like that. That's why I say we have thinkers in this country. They don't have the platform and the opportunity. And some of us that have are also afraid. That's why I was talking about intellectual freedom fighters. Those who have the courage, the fearlessness to be liberators. So you have the knowledge to challenge those who are coming from outside the future. Up till now, our governments are still hiring external consultants. Up to today. And relying on certain restrictions. Go and read the book called The China Playbook, where you a detailed analysis of how China did it their own way. It may cost you pay, but it is our way. We find our own way. We know what will work for us. We know subsidy is not a bad word. In economics, we also learn subsidy in Malawi. Yes, we learn it. It's not, we learn. it is used to correct certain anomalies in the system. What happened with our subsidy is that our subsidy was mismanaged. And rather than tackle the mismanagement, we threw the baby with the bathwater. No, I have said it even on national television. So people know my views on this matter. And there is also a gradual approach to reforms. Nigeria was heading towards 3,000 per capita income. Heading. Suddenly, you know what it is today? $800. So the same people that gave you something to do are coming back to say, you people are getting poorer. Oh, that didn't you know we were getting poorer? You knew we were going to get poorer. So, but you see, that is why we are talking about the deliberateness of governance. You know, some countries actually devalue their policy on their own. But there's a reason. They have an industrial base. They want to export. We need to buy technology. So we still need money to buy technology in order to industrialize. But that's why there has to be clarity of course and purposeful governance. So my young people, I think you should do so. In fact, what I always say is that what gives me hope is that when I'm traveling abroad and I'm in France and Nigerian music is playing, I say, oh, Then I land in America, Nigerian music is playing. So the young, they are exercising themselves. They are doing things in technology. But we that have gone before you are not laying the foundation. And I think the young people should start to put the feet of politicians on fire. And let's see how it works.
Thank you very much. So I want to open the floor for one more very quick round, please. We have here the gentleman here in front. But please, yes, I'll get to you. The shorter the questions, the quicker we can finish.
Yeah,
thank you.
The question is very, very short. If we're talking about development.
Please, can you say who you're directing the question to?
No, I want Prof to answer. Okay. There are two critical things that are very important in leadership. To be visionary and to be able to energize the people, which is our major problem in leadership. Also, we have leaders who have vision. If you are a governor of a state, you look at the competence and what you have in your state, and you concentrate. A situation where our governors are spending more than 3/4 of their time in Abuja, it cannot form a system. Until every nation, that whether you are talking of Singapore or the several examples of the places we have, they were visionary people. They were people, we are not all running to Dubai until they lock their doors. But the man who ran Dubai was visionary. He wanted the widest, he wanted the longest, he wanted the deepest, he wanted superlative.
And there's no democracy in Dubai.
That is it. Until we get to that place, when we have a people who have vision and energize the people. So my question is, how can we get there? Now, what Dr. was asking NESG to do, we have National Orientation Agency. How much are they doing to energize the people, inform the people? We have very informed, publics that are voting. That's the point.
Thank you very much. Okay, 2 more questions and then Prof can answer. Yes. Any more ladies? Any more ladies? Please, there's a lady. Ladies have... Sorry, ladies, please.
You for Professor Osita for this beautiful book. When the letter came to the Vice Chancellor, I'm Dr. Mrs. Esther Gani, an information scientist with Kaduna State University. So when the invite came in, the Vice Chancellor sent the invite to my table, and I looked at the book. It was, they have the details, but it was talking about economic matters, and I'm an information person. who loves to read so much. But looking at the details, that's why I got someone to do it. However, I'm here. One thing that I need is that I need a copy of this book to take back to my vice chancellor and say, yes, I attended the functions. Then when the discussions were going on, there's something that came into my mind. That's the issue of inclusive leadership. Inclusive leadership is something that other countries are practicing, we don't have. Then the second one is adaptive leadership. We need to adapt to changes. We just hold on what we know, 10 years, 20, 30, 100 years, and we don't want to let go of those things.
Okay.
Then it's very important that we let go and then we move ahead.
Okay.
Then the issue of talking about this particular event. This event is very, very far from the people. Why? Because I'm someone who deals with awareness. I create awareness, community engagement. I go around to disseminate information in very simple and local way. This event is very far from the people. And when this event is far from the people, the grassroots will not get it. The caliber of people that are here are well talented and they can assimilate. But let's find a way to break it down. My question is that, sir, organizers of this event, please, I would like you to break this event down and make it easy, simple language, broken English, Yoruba, Hausa, so that this important book being discussed can get down to the people. So that this inclusive leadership or adaptive leadership will be well understood by anybody that would like to come up for any position they want to
Okay.
occupy.
Thank you, ma'am.
So much.
Thank you so much. I think your message is loud and clear. Please, we have a gentleman that's been putting his hand up for a long time. No, please, let's be disciplined, please. We'll bring the microphone back. Please, can you see, we need discipline. Okay, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Professor Muhammad Mutala Usman of the Department of Economics, Area. When I got this invitation, as I interact with Professor, it is important that in this kind of discussion, there must be an open space for which people to say their mind if it is a dialogue. And that's the issue that brought the issue of intellectual character. The role of intellectual, as it was stated in many rights, is to say the truth and nothing but the truth, because what they are searching as a phenomenon is a search for the truth. But as a situation diminishes the intellectual capacity of most of us, they cannot even say the truth to themselves, talk less of power. And that is very key in any development process, because the history, culture, and belief of that society must be taken into consideration in getting the leadership that is required. And where we got it wrong is since 1984, when we started to take ideas from somewhere and put it into this society that doesn't have its own cultural values, have its own belief and value system. And those continuous importation continue up to today. I would be surprised when my teacher, Dr. Shamsuddin Ohajla, will look at the 2024 budget. You will find out at that budget, you will find a maternity hospital building in Nigerian Space Agency. I wonder what brings maternity hospital in Space Agency.
Sorry.
Because the politicians just take over and put whatever they want in anything called budget space.
Doctor.
Therefore, it is important that discussions must be open. And even the time of this event is wrong. By 4:30 to 7, everybody will go prayer.
Yes.
So I think
Yes.
for further discussions, choose a time that will allow people to venture and disseminate the information.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This is noted. This is noted. I think there's a gentleman that had the microphone. We took it from him. After him, I think we have to close. I think this is just the beginning. We're going to have to continue these sessions. So please, just be patient. I'm very sure that we'll come back. We'll be back, God willing. And we've taken note of the timing as well. Yes.
Okay, sorry. My name is I'm Nigeria. So actually, I really enjoy what the professor said. It was a very good talk because I love the Can you hear me now? So I love the development a lot, and I actually wrote some just simple questions for everybody, mostly for the professor, right? So the first question is, it made mention about the nation. Kind of approach to that development. But because we always complain that the issues in Nigeria has to do with the multicultural issues in terms of religion, but Malaysia were able to actually find solutions to that. It means that it's real, so that's what it means. The question here is, what are the ideas that's supposed to give us in regards to what are we supposed to do using the prototype of
Okay.
And that actually goes to the second one, which is simple. It made mention about inequality. The major issue we are having is not about inequality in regards to education system. I'm going to ask you this question. Should we actually abolish the private form of education?
Your private schools and private healthcare. Whether that will help. Okay. I think Prof has just stepped out, so we'll ask. When he comes back, he'll answer. There's one last person, and over there, he just came up to me and complained about wanting to speak. I think we really have to round up, right? Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Apologies. No, you don't. You don't have to seize it.
With due respect to all discussing, can we be serious for once? The Nigerian program has defied every academic approach. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, where did it all begin? Whether you're a president or a governor or a senator or a councillor, we are all products of the whole. So we have an adage that for you to safely come down off the tree, you have to go through the same steps you use in climbing. So we miss it all, not because we have a deficit of academicians. We have never run out of policies in Nigeria. But there's something critical that we have missed, and that is from the home. The second issue is about religion. Unless and until the day Nigeria draws a line between the state and religion, we will never get it right. You run a country where, from your name, it determines where you are admitted in an institution, whether you are employed or not. No country ever does that and succeed. Merit here. You run a system where somebody wins election somehow. In 2 years, you're already giving him National Merit Award. Where you have teachers in the secondary schools who have made names and have served over 30 years. We all know the best mathematics teacher in every locality, but none of them has ever been recognized for National Merit Award. And you expect us to get somewhere? You ask the question again. You've been calling professor this. Are they not part of our problem? Who announced the election results? Today, professors are supposed to occupy a highly revered position in our society. Before now, when you say professor, everybody wants to bow. But today,
the moment you mention a professor, what comes first into our mind is announcing election results that are manipulated.
Okay, sir.
Sorry.
Yes.
I want to conclude this.
Yeah, sir, it's time.
Let's take it back home. And
Okay,
now,
okay.
back to the religious institutions.
Yes, okay.
Can the church and the mosque for
Yes.
once
Okay.
begin to detest any kind of money that you cannot explain the source?
Okay.
Can we refuse to acknowledge
Transparency,
that?
accountability, and transparency. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, our MC, and I think I can say thank you everybody, and thank you to the panelists. I think we can go back to our chairs. Oh, okay, there's a photograph. Okay,
please.
All right. Okay, thank you. So over to you, Nabila.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aisha Waziri Umar. Please put your hands together for our panel. We're going to take a quick photograph very quickly. Our panel has been Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, Estet Zubeya, Ishaya Idi, Professor Mariam Abdu, Dr. Habiba Lawal, and of course our able moderator, Dr. Aisha Waziri Umar. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you so much for that panel. And I must offer the apologies of the NESG. I understand that a lot more people wanted to contribute. Unfortunately, time would not allow. And I know that a number of us want to go to the mosque for Maghrib. So we're just going to get closing remarks very quickly. Thank you so much to the panel. Can we please welcome Dr. Mohammed Sagagi to the stage very quickly as he gives us closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.